So, what is up, Kate? Welcome to the Content Marketing Hacks podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yes, me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, I've been looking for this interview for so long because I've been, seeing a lot of your content recently. So, yeah, and it's been an honor for me to have you here. So,
Oh, thank
so
you for that. I appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah. And anyway, so let's dive in. All right. So I remember you said that you have your content production plan and you have all 7 steps, right? And I actually have a question in step two. You said that we need to have a goal in content production plan, right? And
Yes.
when I listen to the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, let's just call it EO Fire because that's easier. So I listened to the EO Fire podcast. You said that in steps two we have to bring people somewhere, right? We have to bring people in. Whether it's about to take the lead magnet or to join your Facebook group.
Mhm.
And when I listen to the EO5 podcast, the goal, I mean the CTA, the call to action is all over the place. There's an episode that brings people to quantify. There's an episode that brings people to Clavio, and it brings people to other places rather than his own website. So what do you say about that?
Yes, great question. Okay, so anything leading to an external source on the podcast, any of those calls to actions are sponsors of ours. So they're paying to advertise on our platform. And so we're sharing their product or service with our audience. But in addition to those calls to action that you hear on the podcast, you will always hear John give a call to action to something of ours as well. So you might hear him talk about Quantify or HubSpot or some other product or service that is sponsoring the episode. But you will also always hear him say, if you're ready to create and launch your own podcast, check out freepodcastcourse.com, which is our funnel for Podcasters Paradise. So, great question. He's just introducing multiple calls to action. Some of them are for our sponsors, and some of them are for us.
Mm-hmm. So, when is it? When is it that it's the right time to use that uh, ads?
The sponsorships.
There's there's an episode that just bring them to that CTA only. So when is the right time to put that specific CTA?
Yes. So it's really about testing and knowing what works best for your audience. There is no one size fits all for where your sponsorship should go, how long they should be, where your call to action should be. But if you watch trends and you know your listenership and how your audience behaves, then you'll start to recognize if maybe you have a big drop off mid episode, or maybe you have a big drop off where people never stay to the very, very end of your episode, in which case it would be smart for you to always have your call to action at the very start of your content. You know that people are engaged, tuning in, and listening at that point in time, and that they're more likely to take action. So, when it comes to podcasting content, just understanding how your audience behaves, and this would be looking at stats like how long people are listening, um, maybe knowing when they're listening. Like, are they driving in a car? Are they even going to be able to take action at that exact moment in time? And that's why having things like a show notes page is great, and having links and resources and references. Because if you know that your audience is listening always when they're doing something else, chances of them stopping right then and there to actually take action on what you're asking them to do is probably pretty low. So having a home base for them to visit to be able to recall or reference the things that you talked about, like in a show notes page, is a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. So it all depends on the specific situation on where the audience is, right?
Yes. So we do ours. We do sponsorships. We do a pre-roll, a mid-roll, and a post-roll. So we do 15 seconds at the beginning of the episode, 60 seconds in the middle, and then another 15 seconds at the end. Our call to action for our stuff is at the end of the episode. So it's right in that 15-second spot where you might hear one of our sponsors, and then you'll hear our call to action at the very end.
That's awesome. And I kind of curious, how did you come up with with this content plan? Like, can you go through quickly the step by step on how you produce the content?
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a question that we get asked a lot is how do we produce so much content? And the way that we produce as
Yeah.
much content as we do is because we have that plan together. So I thought, well, why don't I put together content that shares how we put together our content? Then other people can, model and format it to fit their needs and work for them. So what I did is I just sat down and I asked myself, what are the steps we take every time we create a piece of content? And that included all the things like having an idea for the piece of content that you're going to create. As you mentioned, making sure that your content has a goal. What do you want people to do as a result of listening or reading or watching whatever it is that you're providing them? Then figuring out things like format and frequency. Do you want to do, a video podcast, or do you want to write a blog post? Is it going to be
Mhm.
30 minutes long? Is it going to be 1,000 words long? So figuring out the length of your content is also important because that helps you create an outline or something that you can use repetitively. And then, of course, having things like the outline for it, and then how you're going to publish it, the frequency of it. Is it going to be once a week? Is it going to be 5 times a week? And being able to answer all these questions in your content plan is so important because your answers to those questions are what allow you to create a plan that you can either batch your content or very quickly and easily create content on a consistent and recurring basis. So that content plan I put together was meant to help other people not struggle so much with being able to create content and put it out there, because we know that consistent content that's free and valuable that your audience can get on demand is what's going to help you grow an audience.
Wow. I love this step that you give there because it kind of flows smoothly from knowing the topic to put the plan in place, right? It actually goes smoothly, and I never seen that smooth uh that smoothness in the steps. But yeah, so why do you think your content production plan works? I mean, why is it work so well, and in terms of monetization, and your system allows you to travel to work 1 hour a day, so how why is it work so well?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what content creators come up against a lot, I think a block or a struggle for many people is that they're spending so much time in the creation of their content and all the steps that I just mentioned that they never have time to work on creating a funnel or a paid product, or even a lot of the times people don't have time to promote the content that they create. And it's because they're spending so much time in it. They don't have any type of outline or system to follow, which is the content creation plan, that would help them free up time so that they can work on other areas of their business, so that they're not constantly feeling like they're on hamster wheel, so to speak, always trying to put out content. When you have a schedule in place and you're able to get ahead, say you have 1 month's worth of content that's already ready and scheduled, just think of how much time that frees up for you, that you're not there creating content, working in your business. That actually gives you time to work on your business, to have one-on-one conversations with your listeners or your readers, to ask them what they're struggling with, to find out what types of products or services you might be able to create and offer them to actually start monetizing and generating revenue. So that's why this content plan is so important. And that's why I think so many people are missing out on the monetization piece, because they're spending all their time in the content creation, when if they just had a plan and a system down so that they were creating content months in advance, then they have so much more time to work on those other areas of their business.
So when you said getting feedback from our listeners, how exactly do we get them to interact with us? I mean, if we do a podcast, we can't really get them, directly to come to us.
Mhm.
They, if they listen if they listen on Spotify or on Stitcher, they don't really have a place to give a reviews, right? Unless unless if they listen on iTunes, then yeah, that's the only place where they can interact with us. So how do we get feedback from them?
Yeah, so this is a great call to action. It would be an awesome goal for your content. The goal just to be engaged with your audience. So even in a video conversation like we're having right now, your call to action could be, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway from today's episode. Reach out to me. Here's my email address. And all you have to do is shoot me an email, let me know what your biggest takeaway is, and I'd love to chat with you about today's episode. So your call to action doesn't always have to be leading people to download something or to join something. It could be just the engagement that you're looking for. And you can put a call to action like that in any piece of content. So if you think about also, anytime somebody reaches out to you via email, anytime somebody comments on a post that you have on social media, any interactions that are going on inside of like a private Facebook group, for example, all of those are opportunities for you to engage with people and to ask questions and to figure out what these recurring themes are that keep coming up for people. If you continue to get emails over and over and over again that from multiple different people who are kind of expressing the same question or the same struggle, that's really great feedback for you. It might not necessarily feel in the moment like a engagement or a conversation with one of your listeners. Every single one of those is an opportunity to have that conversation.
Yeah, I actually remember about putting the CTA to the lead magnet, right? And I
Mm.
put it to all the 30 episodes, and no one really go to the lead magnet. But once I changed to go to my Facebook profile, I got two of them. Two of them reached out to me saying, "Hey, that's a good podcast." So it kind of took me 30 episodes to get two listeners to reach out to me. So yeah,
Yes, but
that
that's
that's
great. I mean, that's the power of testing out different things because you never know, right? It might be that that lead magnet wasn't something that your listeners felt like they needed, but when they saw that they had the opportunity to interact with you and connect with you on Facebook, like they took that opportunity. So that's wonderful. You have to always be trying new things because what works for me might not work for you, might not work for somebody else who's listening.
mm-hmm. So what works for you before? I mean the CTA.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, something that works really well for us that leads into one of our biggest paid courses is a free course. So we have a call to action on many of our episodes and a lot of our content. We post on social media about it often. We talk about it in interviews that we're on. We have what's called free podcast course. This is a completely free 5 video course that all you have to do is opt in and you get access to all 5 videos where John is teaching you how to create and launch your podcast. And that free course is very attractive to our audience because we created it because they told us they needed it. So we had a lot of people
Oh,
reaching out to us saying, I really want to create a podcast. I just don't know where to start. And so once we heard that over and over and over again, we thought, well, we could teach people how to create a podcast. So we created
yeah.
this free course, and that's one of our best converting free opt-ins that leads to one of our paid courses, because after somebody goes through free podcast course, we share with them what Podcasters Paradise is, which is our paid community and membership on how to create, grow, and monetize your podcast. So you had mentioned earlier about like a goal that would take someone on a journey and like lead them to where you want them to go, that where you know that because of the engagement, the research you've done, you know how you can help them because you know what their biggest struggle is. So how do you get them there? for us, that's bringing them to free podcast course and then introducing them to Podcasters Paradise.
Yeah, I like how smart it is because the free podcast course is a podcast. So podcast listeners listen to podcasts, right? So yeah,
Yes.
that's really smart. I like that. And so that works for you. So what didn't work for you before?
I mean, we've had a lot of opt-in downloads and things that we put out there that we've done quizzes in the past. We've never really gained a ton of traction with doing quizzes or quizzes. And I mean, we've had just like PDF downloads before that just haven't really converted as well as some of our other offers.
Mm,
We've thrown so much stuff out there and had so many opportunities out there. But again, that's going back to, you just test until you find something that works. And for us, a lot of those offers that we thought were going to work really well just didn't convert as well as others. So, yeah, I mean, some of it, we have an opt-in that's the top resources from today's top entrepreneurs. People love that download. They want to know what top entrepreneurs are using as their resources for online, for managing their online business. On the other hand, we had one that was, I think it was around like how much does it cost to start a podcast, which we thought was going to be a very attractive download for people. Not very many people wanted to download that. So it's all just about putting it
mm,
out there and taking those numbers as feedback.
wow. And how do you know that's what people want? Do you just put out there and just hoping that people will just click it, or you would ask people
Well,
first before creating it?
yeah, I mean, if it's just an opt-in or a download, usually we get the idea to create those based on feedback that we have heard. So, how much does it start to cost to start a podcast was a question that we got from quite a few people. It was something that we had heard multiple times. And
Mm-hmm.
also through SEO research, we knew that it was something that people were searching for as well. But for whatever reason, people just were not downloading that. So, you can sometimes go off from the feedback that you're getting and maybe it's not going to work. Maybe we weren't marketing it the right way. There are multiple like issues that could be going on if you have an offer that's either not being downloaded or people aren't taking that offer. And for us, that was just one more way for us to get people into free podcast course. And so we just decided to cut it completely versus, maybe find another way to market it or a different audience to market to. We said, let's just put all of our attention to free podcast course and not try and introduce any other entry points. And that worked really well for us to just focus on one thing.
That's actually powerful. I actually want to do the podcast course after. I mean, not the podcast course, but a course in a podcast. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, yeah. So what I realized in what I noticed in EO5 podcast is that if there is a specific event like promoting knowledge broker blueprint or promoting a book, there will be a specific CTA to that event, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if there is none, that means the episode is just brings people to the ads. So what's actually the point of having all this interview if it only brings people to other people's stuff?
Because that's us creating know, like, and trust with people, with our audience. We're bringing them valuable content by way of these interviews. And if they want to be introduced to that person's product, service, course, if that's what's going to help them in their business, then that's awesome. That's why we do
Mm,
what we do, is to help people in their business. So whether they're going to take a course from somebody who we have on the podcast, or maybe just listen to the interview and be inspired or get a great idea, that's it's our platform that they're going to listen to that. And so people remember, oh, I heard that on EO Fire, or oh, John Lee Dumas is the one that does an interview every single day. I listen to it all the time because it gives me inspiration and motivation. And that's how you build, a brand and know, like, and trust, right? So that when
Yeah.
people do decide that they want to start a podcast, or when John launches a book, then we already have all of that, trust and value built up with people for providing this for so long. So the podcast is really what can create so much affinity with your audience, because you create the content and bring the content and the interviews and the value to them to help them in their business, whether they come back to you in a year or
Mm-hmm.
5 years, or they just stay a listener. We're creating that content to help them in their business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Um, so you create a podcast that way to build like trust and relationship with the guests and with the new listeners. And if someone follow all of the steps that you mentioned, all those 7 steps, and if it still doesn't work, what do you think the mistake is?
Either the individual doesn't know who their ideal audience member is, their avatar, or they are not niche enough. So those are always the 2 issues that I see. If somebody's having a struggle getting past, like, the audience growth stage, it's either because they're talking to the wrong people, or they are saying the wrong message to the wrong people.
Wow. So how do we get the right message to the right people?
You have to know who your avatar is, and that goes back to what your topic is. So if I'm going to help you make money by becoming an Instagram influencer, then you have niched your audience down so far that you know exactly what content to provide them, and they know that they are definitely in the right place. But for just helping people monetize their business, you'll never, if you try and talk to everyone, you talk to no one. And
Yeah.
that's trying to talk to everyone. So that's your niche. If you're not niched down, it's going to be very difficult to even know what message to say, because you're
Mm-hmm.
you're too wide of a net, right? In terms of your avatar, it's figuring out who's the one person that you're trying to help and what is their specific struggle. If you don't know, if we didn't know that our audience wanted to learn how to podcast, we never would have come up with the idea to create Podcasters Paradise, because we knew who we were serving and we knew that our audience wanted to learn how to podcast. That enabled us to create that community. But if we didn't know that our audience was podcasters, or that they wanted to become podcasters, we never would have been able to create that. So that's having one-on-one conversations with your listeners. That's understanding intimately what their pain points are and where they are right now versus where they want to be. That's the gap that you need to create the bridge for. So if you have 15 conversations with 15 people from your audience, what are the common themes that they're saying is a struggle for them? And what commonalities do
Mm-hmm.
they have? And how can you use that information to help inform the content you're creating, the offers you're creating? And yeah, the content that you're putting out there that's what's going to attract more of those people, when you know who you're talking to and you have a very specific niche.
Right. So when is the right time to ask for the sale, to sell the audience?
That's kind of a broad question.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, the right time to ask for the sale is when you're confident that you have the solution to your avatar's biggest struggle. If you
Mm,
feel that you have the answer for them, then that is the time to be able to provide it to them
yeah. All right. So
and to make that offer.
I think you are almost on off time here. Right.
Yes.
Okay. So what's the final takeaway that our listeners can really get from our chat here?
Put together a content creation plan. It will help you in massive ways to get out of working in your business and be able to start asking yourselves all the questions that we talked about today, like your offers and asking for the sale and all of these things. None of that will work until you have an audience to make that offer to. And the way to build an audience is to create consistent content. So having that content creation plan is key.
Okay, awesome. So when can people find more about you and learn more from you?
Yeah, everything we do is over at eofire.com.
All right, cool. So, Kate, thank you for sharing your ideas and insight with us. Really happy to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much. It was great to be here.
And for the listener, I'll catch